You know, when it comes to sustainability reporting, not all claims are created equal. Not by a long shot. The Global Reporting Initiative, or GRI, gives us the rulebook, but there are two very different ways a company can claim to be using it. So today we're going to decode those two paths and why understanding the difference is absolutely essential for spotting real transparency.
Look, every company out there wants to tell you it's doing good things, right? But with a sea of claims floating around, how do you really tell the difference between a genuine effort and just, greenwashing? How can a company prove its sustainability report is the full, honest picture of its impact and not just a carefully selected highlight reel? This is the exact problem that GRI was built to solve.
So, to tackle this very problem, the GRI standards offer two official paths. First, you have reporting in accordance. Think of this as the gold standard. It's the comprehensive, all-in approach. Then you have with reference to, a more flexible option for organizations that are using parts of the standards but maybe can't meet every single requirement. And trust me, understanding this distinction is everything.
All right, so here's the game plan for today. We'll kick things off with that credibility challenge and the two reporting paths. Then we're going to do a deep dive into the in accordance standard and its 9 strict requirements. After that, we'll cover the more flexible with reference to option, and we'll wrap it all up by looking at why this all really matters.
Okay, so let's start with the big idea here. At its heart, GRI is all about creating a common language. I mean, without a shared framework, trying to compare one company's water usage to another's is like comparing apples and oranges. It just doesn't work. These standards provide that clear, consistent structure, and that's what builds trust and lets all of us make much more informed decisions.
Right. So when a company decides to use GRI, they're at a crossroads. They have to make a choice. Are they going to go down the super strict, comprehensive path to give a complete picture of their impacts? Or are they going to take the more flexible route for a selective report? That choice has to be declared right up front in their report, and it tells you a whole lot about what you're about to read.
So let's start with the top tier, reporting in accordance with the GRI standards. And let me tell you, this isn't just some casual phrase they throw around. Oh no. It is a formal, serious declaration. It means the company has followed a really rigorous process to report on all of its significant impacts on the economy, the environment, and people. This claim signals the absolute highest level of transparency. So how do they back up that big claim? Well, it all comes down to this number, 9. 9 super strict, non-negotiable requirements. And to make that in accordance claim, you got to hit all 9. No shortcuts, no exceptions. Okay, so what are these 9 requirements exactly? Let's take a closer look. To make this a bit easier, we're going to group them into 3 main stages. First, building the foundation, then the detailed reporting, and finally, making it all official. The first 4 requirements are all about laying the groundwork. It kicks off with applying core reporting principles, things like accuracy and balance, just to make sure the report is high quality. Next, they have to report general information about the company itself, for context. Then comes a really critical step, determining their material topics. This basically forces them to identify where they actually have a big impact, not just cherry-picking the good stuff. And finally, they have to report on the whole process they use to find those topics.
The next stage really gets to the heart of the report. Requirement 5 is pretty straightforward, but it's a big one. For every single material topic they identified, they have to report the specific data the GRI topic standards require. And what if they can't report something, maybe for legal reasons? Well, requirement 6 says they have to officially state that they've omitted it and explain exactly why. They can't just leave a blank space and hope nobody notices.
And finally, we get to the last 3 steps. This is where they make it all official. Number 7 is publishing a GRI content index, which is basically a super detailed roadmap for the reader. Number 8 is providing a very specific statement of use, which we'll look at in just a second. And the last one, number 9, is they have to formally notify GRI that they've published the report. These 3 steps are the official sign-off. So let's talk a little more about that GRI content index, because it's a really big deal. This is way more than your average table of contents. Think of it as a mandatory, super detailed map. For every single disclosure, it has to show which GRI standard it relates to and exactly where you can find it in the report, right down to the page number or the URL. This thing is the true backbone of the report's transparency.
And here it is, that exact statement of use from requirement 8. It might look simple, but this sentence is incredibly powerful. A company is only allowed to use this precise wording if, and only if, it has met every single one of those 9 requirements. When you see this sentence, You know you're looking at a report that is aimed for the highest possible standard.
Okay, and let's be realistic. What happens if a company just can't meet all 9 of those super strict requirements? Or maybe they only want to use the GRI framework for one specific topic, like their carbon emissions. Well, for those cases, there's the second path, reporting with reference to the GRI standards.
So instead of those 9 really demanding requirements we just talked about, the with reference to claim boils it down to just 3. It's a much more flexible way for organizations to use the GRI standards without having to commit to that full, comprehensive report.
And what are those 3? Well, you might recognize them. They're basically the final 3 from the in accordance list. The company still has to publish a content index for the information it is reporting, provide a specific with reference to statement, and notify GRI. It's basically their way of saying, hey, we've used some of the GRI standards, which is great, but just so you know, this isn't a complete in accordance report.
So let's just put it all side by side. In accordance means you're getting the whole story, a comprehensive report on all their major impacts, and it's backed by those 9 strict rules. With reference to, on the other hand, is a selective report. It uses parts of the standards, and while it's still useful, it's not claiming to be the full picture.
Okay, so why are we getting into all this detail? Why does this distinction matter so much? Because it's the difference between a complete, transparent picture and a selective snapshot. For you, as an investor, a customer, an employee, knowing which claim a report is making is literally the first thing you need to check to judge its credibility. All right, let's wrap this up with the most important takeaways. First, that in accordance claim, that's your signal for the highest level of credibility and transparency. Second, because it's so strict, it allows for real apples-to-apples comparability between different companies. It also shows a serious commitment to accountability. And for anyone reading the report, that little phrase gives you instant clarity on just how rigorous it is. It's the ultimate shorthand for trust.
So from now on, when you pick up a sustainability report and see the letters GRI, you know the secret handshake. You know exactly what to look for. Are they making the comprehensive in accordance claim, backed by all 9 requirements? Or are they using the more selective with reference to claim? Now you get the difference. So, what's the first thing you'll check?